So I'm going to run through what I consider probably some of the top 10 ideas that could move next week. Now, I just recently did another video that should link you to this one, but if not, I'll just link it at the end. It'll show why I think that the stock market did bottom and why I think we're ready to consolidate and start moving higher. And it's definitely worth watching if you haven't seen it yet. That'll be at the end of this one, but this may have linked you into that one. So to start with, we're going to look at the weekly charts and we're going to look at the daily charts. There's one I might do at the end that would give it to 11, but it's more of a speculative play. Let's just see how long this goes, and then we'll go from there. So just to start with, we're going to drill down into APPS. Now, what you have to realize about when you go through a massive market correction like we just went through, two things are going to happen. One, you're going to go to larger stocks, and two, you're going to go to new leaders. That's what happens. So any correction leads to two things. It leads to the larger cap stocks moving first. And the reason behind that is liquidity. Institutions can get in and out of them faster. It's why you'll watch something like Tesla move 80 points when BNGO goes up like 30 cents, and you're trying to figure out why. Why? Because right now they're just trying to get into liquidity and they're trying to get into the big names. So this APPS is, in my opinion, setting up to be a new leader. I mean, it has broken out and just done exceptionally well. And you have this huge reversal bar here. But I think it's very important to note something. Here's your break, right? Where you take out the high of this. Twice now we've tested this line and have not broken below it. Lets you know that there's a buyer down there. Now, this is setting up to consolidate. But the one thing I want to point out here is when these stocks consolidate, they're going to have huge ranges. I'm not saying this is going to 100 anytime soon. Could it? Sure, anything can happen. But what I'm suggesting is if you truly look at what's going on here, you can see this wedge, right? So could we do that? Sure. Now what we would be looking for is for a break above this. But really what you want to do is, now understanding this, is now you have to drill down into a daily and really get into it, right? So here we are again, that level we talked about. And look how we undercut it twice. Okay, this is a double bottom no matter how you cut it. This is your downward trend line, which we broke here and then exploded up. We actually bought this in the newsletter and did quite well with it, I believe. There's a link for the newsletter in the description. So you get into this and we break out of the new highs, but then what happens? We reject as we talk about these levels, how they can flip, and they determine your support and resistance. But look what's going on here. We closed right on the downward trend line. Right on the downward trend line. And I think that's very important to realize. And where we're sitting right now is if we roll back into this, we know that we could test the 70 level. But give this a couple more days and definitely put it on your watch list, because this has the potential to really reverse here. This is just exhaustion, and you can see the little bit of hammer that started to try to develop. But you just have a lot going on in this one, and there's a lot of action. And even on your worst selling day, right? Even on your worst selling days, we weren't even breaking above average, which is what I look for. And look at these breakout days. Look at the volume on these breakout days. It's crazy. So I think that this has a lot of potential. It needs to consolidate and go higher. Breaking the $68 level, as everyone knows that watches these videos, I give actionable points and try to educate on what it takes to be a truly successful investor and trader. If you can't hold this 50-day and you break the support, you need to get out. So this one just acted absolutely amazing on Friday. There's really no other way to say it. I mean, I was shocked at how fast it came back. So what happened here is we had to move from 280, 284, okay, to 190. So you had a 100-point move. And just to kind of put that into perspective, just so you can see, the days might be wrong. I don't think it was 2 weeks, but you're down 32% in 2 weeks. I mean, it's staggering. So you're going to base here now. You see how you're starting to form this base right here? And then you're going to push higher. What will happen here now that we've undercut this and retested this level and didn't get to this, you can get a higher high off of this on a continuation gap. and I get into this in the other video, where you can see these stocks are getting ready to have continuation gaps with what we saw on Friday. Frankly, I think we would have been up a lot more on Friday had we not been in a position of having option expiration. So I think that was a little bit of an overhang. And now we're in a position where we can get to 240, 238, right up in this range, before we even try to test this wedge. So this gives us a really good entry place, and it also gives us a nice risk versus reward, which is what we always look for. Now, SE, we broke the 50. We just undercut this, but I just want to point out, look how close we got at the end of the day. And looking at volume, it's very important to understand a couple things. When you look at volume on the daily here, see this bar? Look at the selling on this. And you can literally go through these sometimes and look at the selling here, what happened. Look at the selling here, what happened. Look at the selling here, what happened. And what you'll see with selling, huge red selling bars, is it's usually a sign of capitulation, and then it goes higher. And this has shown you that it's done that 1, 2, 3 times. Why would the fourth time be any different? Could it be? Sure. And that's why you need to understand that the level where you're wrong is this 212.33 level. But I don't see that happening with this green hammer and the amount of volume that came in. Just to be clear on SE, you can see that in this past year, going back even further than that, you can see that we have 5 days of volume like this. And this is pretty substantial volume. So I'd expect this to flip the 50 on a con gap, and then it could come back up here and retest this wedge, 261s, 262. And this is in the same space as what we just went over. And let's just get into this. So these card processings, you're going to see the MasterCards, the Visas, you're going to see them pick up. But let's just go into this because I think this is really interesting here. So you can see this, right? Here you are. Hold on. Let me just do it right there. Okay. So you have this wedge right here, right? How we respected it. We broke and ran right to this. A flip over this gets us to flip resistance to support. And 1, 2, 3. Your A, B, C moves. So you can see this here, and you can see how this transpired. And let's go here and just point this out to you. Now, when you're buying stocks like this, you have to understand you're buying pullbacks, and that's really what you're looking for right now. I'm not a huge pullback buyer. I'm a growth buyer, but this has given us a huge opportunity to get into names that it just ran up. I mean, 2 weeks ago, you had to pay $310 for PayPal. Now you're paying $220, $230, $240. I mean, that's a substantial difference. Just to get back to the high, I'll be up 50%. And then, if it takes a couple months, it takes a couple months. But then it pops right back into this channel, right? Or has the potential to pop into this channel, right? And you can see this channel right here. So you have the potential to pop right back into it. And that's really what we're looking for. But I need to flip first. And then you throw in the rest of the bells and whistles, and you can see the 50s up here. So the flipping here gives us at least room to get to this level so that we could raise our stop and protect our profit. And let's just look at this all in the weekly. So 1, 2, 3, I call these 3 black crows, how we sell off like this. Again, notice the amount of selling that came through and look at how the stock has acted whenever you had massive selling like this, right? You can see whenever you have huge capitulation selling spikes, it usually means the bottom's near. And you can see this bottomed, right? Bottomed. I mean, if you take anything away from this, and I know some people take notes when they listen to me, but you really take away this one key point in this top 10 video, capitulation. This is what you're looking for. This level of volume, this where everybody is just puking it out and saying, just get me out any price. I just want to get out. That's usually the end because there's nobody left to sell. Now, here you are. You're holding support here, and we're just building this huge flag to set up to go higher. But now you're range bound, right? So you're going to be between 277 to 239. So now you know where you're at, and then you just drill down into your daily charts and move from there. People are going to be surprised that I'm recommending this one, I think, considering the space it's in and the work from home. But I really think this is fascinating what's going on here. So here was our downward trend, and we really couldn't get to that line. This was the explosive earnings quarter where we were up over 100 points or 33%. we couldn't even get to that level. With this massive run-up in what was a probably a worse correction because of the way that it happened than what happened during the pandemic, we couldn't even get below the 50-week moving average. And look at this volume spike. We just went through this. What do these volume spikes mean? They usually mean that we're due for a bounce. What happened on this one? Okay, we bounced. And you just can kind of go through them. What happened here? We bounced. So you see where I'm going with this. So why this is not pretty, it's not sexy to look at, you have real triggers that are going on here. I have 3 layers. I have this down test, the 50-week, and I have this support. Now, what does that mean? It means could we be range round for 440 to 337 on the week? Absolutely. Is this a pretty bar? No, it's hideous. So you drill down and you'll be looking for triggers. Now, you're below the 200 here. I would argue that when you flip above this, because there are institutions that simply will not buy stocks if they're not above the 200-day, you flip above the 200-day and you're gonna move on this because people are buying this at a substantial discount to what they could get on it. I understand the growth is going to. People think the growth is going to drop off. I wonder if this goes all the way back to here. So I understand that the growth is going to drop off. Yeah, not really. Well, it probably goes to right about here, right? Right to that breakout bar. So we had a gap fill. That's interesting. So you see how you flip this too? You filled this whole gap, right? And now you came down here, tested your support levels, and you opened and closed above it. And we broke it, and we talk about these patterns all the time, okay? And they're boomerang patterns, where you undercut and then you push. What's our trigger? Get above the 200-day on this and then watch it, because I really think you'll see a ton of buying. You broke the downward channel here, and you've never flipped back under it yet. So watch this 200-day because I think this is really very interesting. I understand they're not going to grow the same way because we're not all going to be locked in our homes, but I think it was Amazon that said they saved over $1 billion in cost on travel in 2020. If you think that they're not going to use these products, or maybe you get half the growth, it doesn't matter. People are going to want to be in this stock. So this was something that we bought once before here by looking at the newsletter. And if you don't get the newsletter, there's a link in the description and it's free. I'd recommend that you do because there's a ton of actionable ideas. So you can see here how we break and we went, right? And this was the old trade. Now look, let's look at the new one. And let's do this first. Let's really get into this because I found this really interesting. You know, you go to the 21 week, you don't break it. And what bar does this take us to? Right? It takes us right to that breakout week where, oh, everybody thinks it's over, and then we encapsulate it on a bullish engulfing bar, and then we rally up. Now we come back and backfill. There's nothing broken here. I mean, there is nothing broken. You know, I know people are not crazy. They just went for a ride from 488 to 353, but, you know, and actually even lower. So, you know, you went, what? You had a 30% drop? Yeah, 33%. So, you know, I understand people aren't crazy about that, but across the board, this is something that, let's get rid of this. So this is something that we're holding support, and now it looks like we can just bounce around in here, which gives me a 100-point range, which you should be able to make money with. And now we're just looking for the trigger. And you know, we talked about this before, that it was breaking down, that this was a possible island reversal, and obviously that was the case. We talked about this earlier. This must be from the newsletter or our Twitter feed, where we talked about this bearish engulfing right under this and right under resistance, and you can see what happened. So, but what do we do now, right? And let's just let's clean all this up and get rid of everything and just go, okay, this is what happened in the past. What do we do now? Okay, this is what we have to deal with. This is what we have, right? See this wedge, and then what you want to do is you want to clone these and see where they fit, because that's really as rough as we're going to get on this one. You want to see where they fit because the trajectory does not change. So you need to understand that you have a trajectory and you have to stay in it. So you clone the line so you get the same angles. So see how we're respecting this? Come right to this line. I mean, this is textbook stuff. This is textbook pullback stuff. And This is a large cap stock. People are going to buy large cap stocks first. They're going to buy hyper growth. People are not getting rid of their Roku. They're not going to get rid of their Netflix because the economies, the global economies are going to open up. People are, the one that you will not hear me recommend today is Peloton, because I think people want to go back to their gyms, and I think people want to go back to exercising outside and riding a bike. I think Peloton has a place, and I think it'll be around for a long time. But the growth of Zoom and Roku, it will just far outpace it. And that's where the money's going to go. It's going to go back into what people are going to construe as the new leaders. And this is setting up a huge wedge. You're right on the low of it. Where would you be wrong if you trade it? Well, you buy it over 361, and you want to give it enough rope, at least right now, so that you're at the support level. So you're going to have to give these a wide berth and let them trade around for a little bit. And if you want to be tighter, you can start looking at the hourly charts and the 15-minute charts to find spots. So semiconductors had a huge bounce, and on Twitter, I actually stated that I was buying the SOXL, and the Twitter link is in the descriptions, and you can see I call a lot of actionable stuff on there. I think it's worth people's time to actually watch it. But it was very clear to me that the SOX was going to bounce. It was a very technical sell-off, and so when you have a very technical sell-off in the indices, you're going to have a very technical buy spot. And that's exactly what transpired. So here we are, we came in, right? And now look. I mean, you can see, like, you're right here. And now you've hit here, boom, couldn't break the double bottom. Now, I think this is important to note. The SOX made a new low on Friday. This didn't. Okay? It tells you your relative strength. We're already above the 50-day moving average on this stock. Most stocks aren't. Okay, when you go through a correction, you develop new leaders. And I would suggest that that may be what's happening here. So you see this wedge? This is a very simple trade. Break above this hammer bar, you are breaking out of the wedge. This will be one of the first stocks to actually do it. And then you're just going to, I think you push. And now I have a base on this that has been going on from, and look at this base, right? I mean, I've got a base now that's been going on for 5 months. So this is really interesting, and I think this has a lot of potential. And it would definitely be one I put on my watch list. And if you look at this on the weekly, it's like a blip. Here's your upper trend. It hasn't even moved. It's like nothing. Now, Tesla, I like Tesla here. I like it a lot. Here is your weekly chart. This is your lower trend line on the weekly chart. It didn't even break it. I mean, it broke it, but then it bounced right through it. And it's really very important to understand. I didn't even get to the split level price. Now, how do I know I'm wrong? If I start closing below this line, if I close below this 564 line, I might get a little concerned. I don't want to go for this ride, obviously. So this would be one level that I would look at, the 564, 565 level. And then obviously if you take out this low, you'd be concerned, but you really need to focus on this level first. Now this bounce, just to walk through it, and let's just look at this. This bounce was substantial and clearly shows that this is, a leader. And let's just walk through this. Okay, we're up 10% in 4 hours. Like, that's not mom and pop buying the stock. That's very large institutions coming in and buying it. And you can see the reversal here, but there was no real trigger on this when it stopped. Frankly, I had a small short position on it, but this to me is clearly reversing, and you can see the line right here as well and how we respected it. Hold on 1 second. Let's draw that because I think it's significant. So you can see this right here. And then obviously if you flip it, you can see it up here too. But this is one definitely on your radar. A higher high, and you're going to go right back to this 695 level. If you flip this and you open here, you're gonna pin to this. We are so far off the 50-day that these stocks that are this far off the 50-day in that type of time, okay, they rebound very fast. I'm off 30% in what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 days. I mean, that's pretty substantial. It's something you really want to pay attention to. When you're this far off the 50-day, you can see a snap back to it. And I'm not saying that we're taking out new highs anytime soon. What I'm saying is that if you're looking for an entry point, this is one. We could consolidate and move higher, but now that you're on the lower end of this channel, let's get rid of this. This is something to look at. And shop, and you'll see the common theme with all of these, right? They're all major leaders, all of them. So, and I'm going to go through one more at the end of this that I bought, and I put in the newsletter, and I think it's worth mentioning the more I think about it. So, shop is here, and you can see this wedge. Let's get rid of these indicators, and let's just show this, and just look at price for a moment, okay? So, here's this wedge, and it's probably pretty close to this if we clone it. Yeah, kind of close. So here's your wedge, and we come down here, reject, right to what? Probably right here. Yeah, I mean, you can kind of see this level, right, without me even drawing it. I mean, it goes back all the way to here, right? So, I mean, you can see this. You can see the support line. And you come right to here, and it's just a nasty bounce. We bounced over 110 points on this stock in one day. That is not mom and pop. That is institution saying, get me in. And again, what do we have here? We have a huge selling bar, which is just people just puking it out. There's nobody left. And you can see how the stock responds to that. Yeah, you might rally up and you might test again, but you flip over this line, right? You flip over this 1145, and you're going to see a massive influx of buying, probably back up to the 50-day, which is also just happens to be the high of this channel. So this is a really good entry point for this stock right here. And somebody needed to just tell Google there was a correction. I mean, there's really no other way to say it. It was just an absolute monster. And you can see this here, right? Now look at this. This triggered. I mean, this actually triggered during the day. Look at that. Look at that. We're actually set up already. Now, if you don't want to wait, or you don't like that, just wait for this to break the 21.1650 level and go from there. And if you trade these and you're worried about, I can't buy 1,000 shares or 5,000 shares of this, if you're a smaller trader, look, you can do options on this. I mean, you could do leaps on this all day long. The volatility is not crazy on them. It's something for you to to consider, and I'm just giving you a little guidance that way. But look at this on the weekly. I mean, I've got a high, tight flag, bull flag, on the weekly chart. I'm not even below the 8-week. Like, this chart is just super strong, and it's definitely worth looking at. Let's do the last one, and if you could do me a favor and please click the like button. That's how the algorithm here apparently works. And what I'm trying to do is show people how to be consistent and profitable as an investor and trader. So I got into this because I saw a lot of junk on the internet, showing people on mountaintops trading for 5 minutes and then going on living their lives, and that's just not the case. So I would appreciate it. Here you are at 103, 104, 105, and here's your breakout bar. Here's the low of that breakout bar. What was that number? 105.60. What was the low of this? 106. I'm within 70 cents of that breakout bar. I mean, tell me technical analysis doesn't work. This is nasty stuff. Look, they went after Cathie Wood with a vengeance on the sell-off. I mean, there's no doubt about it whatsoever. And in the next video that links to this one, I get into it, and I get into why we bottomed. But it's really important to understand that people don't like the change of status quo, and larger institutions simply will go after a fund and attack them. And that's really what's happening here. This move, and she does own a lot of tech stocks. I mean, let's be honest. They're filled with tech stocks. ARK K, ARK F, ARK J, they're genomics. I mean, there's a lot of high growth, which has a lot of movement. But look at this, okay? We came right down to this breakout level, tested it, and bounced. And I threw this in the newsletter on Friday as a buy alert, and it just triggered perfectly. When we went here and then bounced, and then I'll show everybody why it went in there. And again, if you don't get the newsletter, there's a link in the bio or the descriptions as well for it. And I just think it's very it's worth your time to read and sign up for. So you see this flip here, and then I really was not convinced, because every flip that we've been dealing with, like this flip here or this flip here, because you have to look at these patterns, right? I was not convinced, because I just wanted to see the pattern change. So what I waited for before I put out the alert was, see how you have this wedge right here? Let's get rid of these indicators, because this is important stuff for people to understand how they can do this on their own without me. So you see this line right here? See how you broke this? See how you've never really done that on any of these? You've always had lower lows. And here we have a higher, and we break out. Look at that. And this was my trigger when that happened. And now let's overlay the indicators with it, and I'll show you even more. See this 5 and 8 MACD cross, or I'm sorry, moving average cross? This let me know that we could be in really good shape. And I really like this. And I do a little video on this. But you can see this here. And then we just broke out. We just kept going. And if you're a longer term person, 10 days ago, you had to pay $159 for this. Just to put this in perspective, this is an ETF, just to put it in perspective. This is an ETF that moved that far. I have an ETF off 30, 35%, probably 25% just off its 50-day moving average in a week. That's insanity. And with that level of selling, and we just talked about this, see this is capitulation. This is get me out. She doesn't know what she's doing. And you're already seeing the pitchforks come out. So it provides opportunity. I'm not saying you're going straight back up. You're going to go up, consolidate, backfill, base, and then rip. But this gives us a great entry. So that's it. And if you have any questions, please leave a comment. I respond to all of them.